Welcome to Gas Spotlight. I'm Sarah Scruggs, and today we'll be talking about anxiety and its effects on our mental health. Joining me today, I have Ethan Bruner. Now, Ethan, in your own words, will you describe what anxiety is to you?
Yeah, so for me personally, I would say that anxiety goes further than just being anxious before a test. Like it's honestly like a daily thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've been clinically diagnosed to have anxiety. And I just know that there are different versions of anxiety, but for me personally, it's definitely like an everyday struggle for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It makes me think too, we all have general little things that makes us anxious.
Yeah.
But the idea of anxiety just as a mental illness being a more long-term thing and affecting a lot more areas in our lives.
I agree.
Have you ever struggled with anxiety, or can you talk about that a little bit?
I think I hit I think anxiety really came on full strong in middle school, and it came from like bullying, and I think it built like a defense mechanism to others and not to be so accepting and open to others in the regards to like being judged. Does that make sense? So I think like in middle school it definitely started, and I still have it today in my adult life. It's not near as bad as it was when I was younger, but it definitely from mental trauma developed through that.
And so how has it affected your day-to-day and even to today, like just in general your life now, not in middle school?
Like it limits me in public spaces. Like when I go to the store or something, I feel like anxiety really just attacks me more than it does at home. Like I don't really have anxiety when I'm just by myself, but there are times where I do get anxiety about certain things, like socially, while I'm not being social, if that makes sense, like social scenarios or something that I had before.
I definitely relate to that. I feel like I definitely have anxiety, especially with social interactions, which I feel like I've worked on a lot. But like anything dealing with confrontation or even the fear of it, I've kind of let that anxiety allow me to sometimes let things go that shouldn't have, just so I could avoid those anxious moments.
Another thing that I noticed myself doing recently is I'll have like pretend like how I would respond to people, like conversation wise, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you think of the conversation ahead of time to prepare for it.
Even like people's replies, like while they're talking, I'm thinking, what am I gonna say? And a lot of time my family members will be like, Ethan, you're never listening. And the reason that I'm never listening is not because I don't find it interesting what you're saying, it's that I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna say, which
and
is
what
really,
they might say and prepare for it.
It's debilitating, honestly. Like it really is, like, because you just want to function normally, and that's why I feel like anxiety in its deep root is it's like an illness, and it goes further than, like I said, like before a test,
So what's a common misconception that that you see people have about people with anxiety?
Definitely what I just said is like that anxiety isn't that big of a deal. It's probably the biggest one, because everybody has anxiety. Yes, like I said before, everybody does have anxiety, but it goes much further than that for those who are like clinically diagnosed with anxiety. Like it affects your whole life.
Yeah, I think people can be like, oh, well, this is such an easy situation, why would you be anxious?
Yeah.
And it's, you would prefer to not be anxious, but that's how your brain is functioning and making you feel about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's something that you want to do but anxiety prevents you from doing?
Being more social, honestly, like, and I like draw myself back a lot from like being who I actually want to be. And I know that sounds weird, but like,
you're
putting my
anxious
full
about
self
showing
out
yourself
there,
to people.
if that makes sense. So anxiety will definitely like beat me down and say, don't do that or don't say that. You know what I mean? It's kind of crazy. Like, I don't know, like. Yeah, no, I definitely relate to that. I feel like in general, and also as young people, it takes a while for us to kind of like come into ourselves. Yeah.
And when you add anxiety to that, it can be even more of a delay into realizing that.
In high school, it was a lot worse because there were mornings where I was trying to get dressed like an outfit or something, and I couldn't figure out what looked good on me. So I would go through my entire closet to try and find something to wear because of my anxiety and how people would perceive me throughout the day. That I would literally end up crying on the floor and not going to school because I couldn't find what I wanted to wear that would make me feel secure and not so anxious about what I was wearing. I don't have that problem near as bad now, but there are still mornings sometimes where I'm trying to find something and I just don't like how I look in the mirror, and I'm like, I don't want to do this, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And I feel like that goes more along the lines of like insecurity, but like it's still like anxiety. Yeah.
So what's the scenario where your anxiety feels the strongest for you?
Public spaces for sure, and like being with friends, like hanging out with friends. I wish I could enjoy the time that I have with friends more, but because of anxiety, I have a lot of anxious thoughts, and so those kind of like make me kind of negative sometimes. Like I remember,
Second guess the conversation or what they're thinking.
yeah, that's another thing is like I like I don't do it as much now, but I used to do it in high school. I used to tell people like I can know what people are thinking about me, but I realized later on that that's not true. I'm just really anxious, and I'm thinking like they're judging me at all times.
Definitely. I feel like something I used to deal with, and I'm a lot better with now, is the anxiety of like, oh, do my friends really like me, or do I just get on their nerves?
Yeah.
And do I bring it up? And will bringing it up make them think I'm annoying if I wasn't already annoying them before? If that makes sense.
I agree.
Yeah. So what are some techniques that you use to help ease your anxiety when it hits you?
Positive self-talk is definitely one of them. And what I mean by that is just like telling myself like good things to beat down the negative things, because anxiety is very negative. It's very negative, self-centered, and it usually goes in within yourself and others, but more towards yourself. So I would say a lot of positive talk, and also just clearing my mind. And I don't mean like meditating or something like that. I just mean like when I have a negative thought, like just regrouping.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I was telling, we had talked about this before we started filming. I told you I try and have a mindset, if it's out of my control, then I try not to let it bother me as much. And, we'll always have anxiety about, oh, will this person like me? Will that person like me? When we can only be ourselves,
Right.
And if they don't, it's okay if they don't,
Yeah.
So another thing, what advice would you give to someone who has anxiety, kind of off of the last thing we were talking about?
I think that it can get better. And if you seek help, definitely it can get better. And just developing a routine for your anxiety and like how you struggle with it. Like I just said, what I do to make it. I just feel like when you have a routine involved in your anxiety and you have positive self-talk, that can really help you with your anxiety. And you're not alone. There are tons of people that have anxiety, and people you may even know. I mean, it's more relatable than people think. It's just very taboo, and like people don't usually talk about it too much.
Yeah, and the nature of anxiety itself is it makes you second guess yourself.
Yeah.
So it's going to make you not want to talk to people about it. Well, thank you so much for your time, Ethan, and for joining us on Gaston Spotlight.
Thank you for having me.
I'm your host, Sarah Scruggs. This has been Gaston Spotlight, and we'll see you next time.